Welcome back to another episode of Pokemon Knowledge. On today's episode, we're going to go back in time a little bit to the middle of 2003 when Wizard of the Coast had stopped producing Pokemon cards and Nintendo had taken over. Obviously, a lot of us know that Skyridge was the last Wizard of the Coast set released in May 2003. Then very soon after that, Nintendo took over with the EX Ruby Sapphire set released in June 2003. So really, there was only that 1 month that Skyridge was released, and that's why it's become a thing of myth at this point, where a lot of people understand that that is a very small print run. But something very important to keep in mind is that Wizard of the Coast did have other sets in the backlog, like Jamboree and Legendary Collection 2, that they were planning on releasing. But because Nintendo took over, they weren't able to do that. Now, yes, we have seen some of those best of game promos, and there has been the conversation that maybe some of these best of game promo cards would have been in either Jamboree or Legendary Collection 2. No one really knows if that's true or not. But the purpose of this video is to talk about the transfer of power between Wizard of the Coast and Nintendo. The transfer of power definitely wasn't rainbows and sunshine. It was not something Wizard of the Coast wanted to stop doing. There were definitely a lot of lawsuits that went on. But when people talk about this stuff and they talk about the transfer of the power and they talk about Jamboree and they talk about Legendary Collection 2, the question is, well, where are people getting their information from? Because a lot of people probably weren't into the hobby so deep that they were really worrying about stuff like that. But with that said, a lot of people get their information really from only a very small amount of sources. And one of those being an article that was written in October 12th, 2003. And honestly, this article has become a huge talking point for years. And this article always seems to rear its head every couple years where somebody seems to rediscover it. I personally rediscovered it multiple times throughout the year. I'm sure there's a bunch of threads on E4. Before I made this video, I did do a quick search on E4, and it was talked about as recently as April of this year. So it definitely pops up once in a while. But the important thing about this article is that it's where so much of the information that we use as history really comes from. And if you guys aren't familiar with this article at all, we're going to go through it in today's video. I'll give you guys some of my thoughts about it, but I think this is something very important for you to listen to. And not only is it important to you to listen to because you'll get a better understanding of the transfer of power between Wizard of the Coast and Nintendo, it's very important for you to understand because to better understand this hobby is now and has always been to understand the history of the hobby. The article is titled, "A Suit of Cards, Wizard of the Coast Sues Nintendo Over Pokemon Game." Renton-based game developer Wizard of the Coast Inc. has sued Redmond-based Nintendo of America Inc. and several affiliates for breach of contract and patent infringement over the hit Pokemon trading card game. The lawsuit filed October 1st in U.S. District Court in Seattle accuses Nintendo affiliate Pokemon USA of abandoning a contract with Wizard, the longtime producer and distributor of Pokemon trading card game, and using Wizard's patented method and technology to manufacture the game itself. The lawsuit also names two former Wizard executives who were hired away by Pokemon USA, accusing them of revealing trade secrets. Now, I do find this very interesting because you can definitely understand how similar the quality of the cards between both Wizard of the Coast and a lot of the early Nintendo EX sets were very similar. So if there wasn't like a ton of information being transferred between both companies, it is interesting to know how are the card qualities so similar. And I've always just thought it was an easy transfer. And I thought, like, well, the actual cards itself, because of the actual physical e-reader of the games, you would have just thought that it would be created by a third party and not Wizard of the Coast. So I've always found that very interesting. But that could be your answer right there, that two executives more or less moved over and got Nintendo prepared for this transfer of power. The suit provides a glimpse of a bitter behind-the-scenes dispute over the Pokemon trading card games, which became highly popular in the late 1990s and sold millions of copies nationwide. The game allows players to do imaginary battles using illustrated cards. Wizards, a subsidiary of Hasbro Inc., claims it pioneered the idea of trading card game and holds the patent rights to it. Its own Magic the Gathering card game became a cult phenomenon and generates sales of hundreds of millions of dollars in the mid-1990s. Ian Hart recently made a video with one of these former Wizard of the Coast employees, and they talked about exactly this, about that patent that Wizard of the Coast had on trading card games, which is very interesting. But the company signed an agreement with Nintendo in 1998 to manufacture and distribute the Pokemon trading card game outside Asia. The lawsuit says the Pokemon Company are affiliates of Nintendo's parent company in Japan, according to the suit. The collaboration lasted for several years, but relations between the partners began to sour in 2002 when Pokemon USA hired away a Wizard senior vice president, Richard Aarons, and a vice president, Renee Flores. According to the lawsuit, several other Wizard executives also went to work for Pokemon, says the suit. Anytime you hear about companies doing this kind of stuff where they start taking executives very early, any moves that they make will be very calculated, and that's what it sounds like, because honestly, it sounds like Nintendo was very well positioned to take over the trading card game. And like I said earlier in this video, Skyward was released in May 2003, and EX Ruby Sapphire came out in June 2003. So they didn't skip a beat with producing their own cards. So that is very interesting. In March 2003, Pokemon USA refused to allow Wizard to release two trading card games, the Jamboree and Legendary 2 expansion sets for Pokemon Gold and Silver Edition, which the Wizard team had spent considerable time and money developing, says the suit. Pokemon also informed Wizard that it had not been chosen to manufacture and distribute a new Pokemon trading card game, the Ruby Sapphire Edition, the lawsuit said. So that is also very interesting, because if they did spend a lot of time and money making both these Jamborees and Legendary 2 collections, it's very possible that some of these cards could exist somewhere in some Wizard of the Coast ex-employees, closet. And if that's true, I know there's a lot of people out there would love to see those cards. Pokemon began producing the Ruby Sapphire Edition itself using Wizard's proprietary methods and materials, according to the lawsuit, and made Nintendo the distributor. The lawsuit says Pokemon representatives offered to approve release of the Legendary 2 set if Wizards agreed to provide free marketing support and confidential information about tournament players, which I find very interesting. Why would they care about confidential information about tournament players? But Wizard refused. The day after its last set of agreements with Pokemon USA expired on September 30th, Wizard filed a lawsuit seeking a trial by jury and unspecified damages. The lawsuit accuses Pokemon of soliciting and hiring at least 7 former Wizard employees to work on the Ruby Sapphire Trading Card Edition, including Wizard's former art director, senior graphic designer, business manager, events marketing director, and project management director. So I think that really answers why these cards looked so similar, because you got to look at some of the people that they did hire. Former art director, so they probably were super involved in all the designs of the cars, and the senior graphic designer. Honestly, guys, this just sounds like Nintendo was very well positioned, very well prepared to take over this game from Wizard of the Coast, and I could understand why Wizard of the Coast would be so upset and filed this lawsuit. All had signed non-disclosure agreements prohibiting them from using or disclosing confidential information about Wizards to third party, according to the lawsuit. The lawsuit alleges that former Wizard employees had access and were responsible for every critical stage of converting the Japanese version of the Pokemon Ruby Sapphire Edition to English, as well as manufacturing, packaging, marketing, and distributing it. The suit accuses Pokemon USA of using Wizards' proprietary information to solicit Wizards distributors, vendors, and customers. Guys, this is all super crazy, super sketchy stuff that Nintendo is doing. But at the end of the day, this is all making sense of why Nintendo was able to produce Ruby and Sapphire and a lot of this EX early sets so very easily. Wizard of the Coast has built tremendous brand equity over the years with our popular proprietary trading card games and aggressively seeks to protect its valuable intellectual property and trade secrets, Wizard said in a statement. Barbara Dawson, a spokeswoman for Wizard, said the parties had entered into settlement talks but provided no further details. Pokemon USA, in a written statement, responded to the suit, insisted it did nothing wrong or illegal. We were sued the day after our distributed agreement with Wizards ended. We are confident that we acted both legally and fairly with respect to Wizards and believe the issue will be resolved, the company said. Nintendo of America, which owns the Pokemon trademark in the United States, did not return calls seeking comment. And there you guys go. That is the article that a lot of people have been getting their information from for years and years. So when you do hear people talk about some of this stuff, this may or may not be, but it's more likely than not where a lot of people got that information. So now you have it. Do with it what you want. Now you have a little bit of the backstory. I did try the research a little bit more and see exactly what the lawsuit, how it panned out. But sadly, it was settled out of court, so we'll never really know the true details, and I'm sure there was a lot of non-disclosure agreements signed after the lawsuit. But it is interesting. It was definitely a crazy time in the hobby. I wasn't personally in the hobby in 2003. I had exited at that point, and I hadn't come back yet, so I wasn't familiar with a lot of this, why it was going down. And honestly, if I was in the hobby, I probably wouldn't even really have realized the implications of Wizard of the Coast no longer making cards and Nintendo taking over. It wasn't until years later that all of us can really sit back and appreciate exactly how crazy of a time that must have been. But it also really makes you respect some of those real late Wizard of the Coast sets, your Expeditions, Aquapolis, and Sky Ridge. And it makes you understand, what kind of, dynamics and inner workings must have been going on in the company at that time. And I'm sure there was definitely a sour taste in a lot of Wizard of the Coast executives' mouth, losing a lot of their bigwigs and at the same time losing the rights to Pokemon itself. And trust me, anytime you have a lawsuit ready the day after your agreement ends with Nintendo, you were preparing for this, and a lot of this must have been really boiling under a lot of their skins for a long time. I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you go down below in the description, you'll find the link to this article if you want to go back and read it yourself, or maybe save it for your records if you want to go back and revisit it in a couple years, because I'm sure people will. But other than that, listen guys, if you made it to the end of the video, you're not subscribed, do me a favor, go down below, hit that subscribe button. Other than that, hit the like button, and I'll catch you guys on the next video.